I did a video a while back on running Nuxt3 inside a container. As we can see here, the premise of using containers is to build the container once and deploy it across your deployment lifecycle environments, for example dev, test and production. The problem, as Mike's87 points out, is for single page applications there's a problem in that the environment settings get applied at build time, not runtime. Let's go and dig a bit deeper into this issue and see how we overcome it so that we can adhere to the container mantra of build once, deploy many. Hi and welcome back to the channel, or welcome along if you're new here. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this issue of containers and specifying runtime configuration into containers. So I've got a vanilla Nuxt3 application here, and all I've done is added into the Nuxt config a variable that's coming from the environment. So it's looking for my-env, and if it doesn't find it, it sets it to development. And then I'm setting that as the value for a site environment property that I'm putting into the public area of the runtime config. So this would be accessible from the rest of my Vue application. And if I jump over to the app.vue, then what I can do in here is just add that in, and inside the script we can get that value using the composable for the runtime config. So if we now mimic how we build our container, so I've added in the Docker file here, and what we do with our container is we get the Alpine container down, we copy the package JSONs across, do an npm install, and finally we do an npm run build. And it's the npm run build that's the relevant bit here, because this is what is essentially giving us the grief, because npm run build, as we'll see, is when it's actually looking at that process.env.my-env. So let's go and mimic how the container gets built. We can do an npm run build, and then as you can see here, it tells you how you can actually run that up. And if we look at our Docker file, we can see that that is exactly what we're doing. We're calling node and calling on the server.index.mjs. So if we actually do that here, that will start our Nuxt application. And if we jump over to a browser, refresh that up, we see our value has been set to development because I didn't set the environment variable. So let's jump back over, stop this, and let's go and set that environment variable. And this is essentially what a lot of people are doing, and where the confusion comes in is we're setting that my-env environment variable. So we would expect our site environment therefore to be set to staging when we run up our application, but we're not rebuilding the container. So all we're doing is running up the container with that environment variable set, and when we come over here we do our refresh and we still see development. And this is the crux of the problem. We're struggling to override that development setting with our environment variable at runtime with our container. So because this is only used at build time, and we don't want to go rebuilding our container every time we want to change this value, Nuxt provides an alternative, or rather all SPA technologies provide an alternative. So let me just jump over to the docs for Nuxt, and if we look at environment variables, we can see that your desired variable must be defined in your Nuxt config, which is what we've done in the runtime config area. You can provide a specially named environment variable that starts with Nuxt underscore, as it shows here in the example. If you've got runtime config and public and API base, then you need an environment variable to override that called Nuxt underscore, and then public, and then API, and then underscore base. So if we apply that logic to our particular problem, then we can set up an environment variable called Nuxt public site underscore environment, and we can set that to staging. So we have to set this particular value, not this particular value, when we're specifying properties. And this is the important thing. So now if I've exported and set that value, if I now rerun up the application, come back over to the browser, refresh this, you see my value changes to staging. So I didn't rebuild the application this time, and that value has been correctly injected into the application at runtime. So this is how we need to do this when we come to dealing with containers. So let's come back over here, stop this. Let's build our container. And that's built. So now let's run up that container, and we're not going to specify anything that we're injecting into it. Let's just see what the container has built for us by default. Let's jump over here and we can see that that's set to development again. So let's come over here and stop the container, and this time we'll rerun it, but we will specify this extra environment variable, which is exactly what we did previously. So now if I come over and refresh, we see that we've correctly injected that environment variable into our container and overridden that runtime property. And that's it for this video. That's all I wanted to see, was to clear up some confusion around how we can do that. In my next video, I'm going to go into a more complex process around how we can deal with this type of problem. So stay tuned for that one. But thank you for watching this one. Thank you to my channel sponsors, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.